So let's continue the formation of our educational project. Let's create an executable file application.js of the application itself. Go to the step-by-step 001 directory of our project and create a text file application.js. Open it in a text editor. Let's take the code of the file from the training example, copy it. And place it in the file itself. All the application we have completely ready. So, let's see what we have here at all written. First of all, we connect the FOS library with regular Node.js tools, via require. Next, we describe our module, our application. The name of the application's module.js must fully match the file name. The dependencies property is an array of module dependencies. In this case, there is only one dependency, it is the singleton of the server application. From the end server directory file application.js. Comes as a variable, as an argument to application. At the time of execution of the singleton module, the server application is not yet initialized. It does not have parameters set and the application is not running to receive requests from clients. Our task is to do all these manipulations. First of all, we need to set the parameters of the application itself. This is done by the setSettings method of the singleton application, which takes as an argument an object with the following properties. Port property. The port on which requests from clients will be listened to. In this case it is port 3001. The projection directories property is an array of directories from which projection files will be read. In this case we have one directory, its projections. Here it is. From which the pages file that we created in the last step will be read. Files are read by the projection extension criterion. The next parameter packages immersed in the application itself. The friendly open space framework is extensible. Its extension is performed by packages, connecting them to the server application itself. In this case, we connect only two packages. This is FOS management, which is responsible for providing an administrative GUI. For content management, module management, and so on. And the FOS controls module, which provides GUI controls templates. The default theme property is the default theme. Until disassemble not let us. Can be to leave and management. Dynamic loading type of loading of web templates. If it is set to true, the templates are loaded and processed every time they are accessed, when they are requested. If set to false, the template is loaded and processed once, it is taken from the cache. It is taken from the cache. Therefore, on server solutions, on combat servers, it is better to set false. In debug mode, in development mode, it is better to set true so that you can immediately see the changes made to the template file in the browser window. The next data client property, database connection parameters, has two properties. Default connection, the default connection and connections, the parameters of the connections themselves. Parameters of the connections themselves. This object, as the key of the element, is the name of the connection. And as a value are the parameters. Let's analyze these parameters. The type property is the database type, in this case MySQL. The host property is the name of the machine, the host in this case is localhost. DB name of the database datas. In this case, step-by-step 001. Well, the user and pass fields. And the last the onInitialize property of the setSettings method. This is a callback that is called when the singleton application initialization completes. In this callback we need to run a wiretap from port 3001 by the run method. In fact, the launch of the application itself which is done here. First check for an error. If there is no error, run the application. If there is an error, spit in the console error. All parameters setting is finished, it remains to prescribe the routes. Routing the application itself, what URLs, how it will respond. The router object is responsible for these things, which is accessible via the getRouter method of our singleton application. The add method adds routes as an array. Let's analyze the rules of the route assignment. Any route must contain at least 2 parameters. This is the route itself and the controller that will handle the request from the client. Route properties can be set by multiple views, multiple types. We will analyze only 2 types of Jobit is a direct match to the request URL. For example, if the user explicitly led index.html, that will work out exactly this route here. It's an exact match. Well, in this case an empty string is passed here which indicates that it is the route. This is the main page. The second type of route assignment of the route property is an asterisk assignment, which consists of 2 parts. The prefix and the asterisk itself. This route will correspond to all requests from the client that begin with the prefix. In this case with CSS and contains further any combination. The following properties of this controller. This is the controller that will process the actual request from the client and perform the response. We currently use only regular controllers represented by the FOS library itself. And so we will analyze our 2 routes that I have here. The first route is the route of the main page. It is answered by the tmpl.js controller. From the nserver ncontrollers directory and the tmpl.js file. This controller requires setting only one property, this is source. Which should store the path to the template file of the processed request controller data. In this case, it is the mainpage.tmpl. We have not created this file yet, we have prepared only the templates folder itself. This is the main page response route. The next route is the route of loading CSS files. From the CSS directory, the files of which we have not yet specified, but he directory but already created. It is answered by the file.js controller, which requires setting also one property. This is the source directory from which the files will be read and issued to the client. In general, we are finished with routing. It remains only to run the initialization of our server singleton application. After running this method, the projections will be loaded and additional actions will be performed. The packages will load, a bunch of everything else will happen there. And the onInitialize callback will jerk, in which we will run our application. And it will begin to respond already to requests from customers. And so let's start our application. Go to the folder step by step 001. And run our application node applications.js. As you can see, when we first started, the application performed a bunch of actions. This has completed the installation and initializing packages and the kernel itself. This is done on the first run. Data are registered in the database. Tables are created. Files are created. In general, all the necessary functionality for the packages and the kernel is created. So we see, for example, that we had the installation of the kernel itself, the installation of the FOS management package, installing FOS controls packages and also themes. Therefore, when you first start, pay attention to whether there are no errors, or when you first connect an additional package. Also pay attention whether there are no errors, whether everything is correctly established. On subsequent runs, these actions will not be performed, because they are unnecessary. So let's see what our application performed when accessing port 3001. Localhost 3001. As you can see, the server has already answered something. Error message. Since the file we have mainpage.tmpl is not yet available, but the server is already running. All on this step over. I'll meet you in the next class.